Attorney Byron Gipson is running to be the next Fifth Circuit Solicitor. The solicitor race garners a lot of interest in any election year, but this year's contest for Richland and Kershaw County's top prosecutor has risen to become one of the most important local races in this year's election cycle, because whoever wins this seat will be charged with bringing accountability back to the office and restoring the public's trust. Just days before the election, I had the opportunity to talk with Gipson to discuss his background and why he says he's the candidate voters can put their trust in. Mr. Gipson, how are you doing today?
I'm well, thank you.
Thank you for taking time to sit down with me. We'd like to start off by asking you, for those who might have missed you in the primary,
Yes, sir.
tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right, I'm a 1989 graduate of Dreher High School here in Columbia, South Carolina. After I graduated, I went to the College of Charleston, where I received degrees in English and political science, and actually got a minor in African American studies. From there, I attended the University of South Carolina School of Law, where I graduated in 1996. My first job after law school was to work for the Honorable Judge Casey Manning, when I worked with him for a year as his law clerk. And from that date, I took about a week off and then started working with Johnson, Toll & Batiste law firm. That's with I.S. Levy Johnson, Luther Batiste, and Bill Toll. And I've been with, I'm actually a partner now, but I've been with Johnson, Toll & Batiste since August of 1997, so a little over 21 years.
Okay. You won a decisive primary this last June in the Democratic primary, and now you're on the general ticket. You're going to be in the general election, and so there's opportunities for people that may be independents or possibly conservative people to vote for you, and so they might have missed why you're running. So would you again tell me why you're running for office?
And there's several reasons. Initially, I'm just a believer that you can either be a part of the solution or a part of the problem. And as we watched, again, I've been practicing law, mainly criminal defense, for the last 21 years. And I started to see trends that I was not happy with. I practiced law and done cases from murder cases all the way down to traffic tickets in federal courts, local courts, state courts, family courts, magistrate courts, pretty much anything that you can think of. I've tried cases in about 39 counties. So I've seen this, I've done this. I'm a trial lawyer. This is what I do. And so I saw trends that I wasn't happy with about sometimes the way the cases were being moved, the backlog of cases, just how some of the diversionary programs were not accessible to all of our citizens. And so that was something that was, I was never really happy with how that was working. But I think the icing on the cake was when we started to see the erosion of trust that started to take place. And that was happening when these allegations started to come through about money missing or money being misused and misspent. And that to me just was something that just told me, look, I can either complain and fuss about the process, or I can offer myself and say, look, I want to come in here and do this job and do it in a way that's going to be efficient, make folks proud and make folks know that we're going to return integrity and confidence to this office.
Okay. Touching back on the issue of accountability.
Yes, sir.
Our former solicitor recently stepped down due to allegations, different allegations.
Yes, sir.
So a lot of the community is concerned about accountability and trust and being able to be treated fairly in that office, regardless of who your name is. How are you proposing to bring back accountability to that office and to the citizens of Richland County?
It starts with, and this is a pledge I made back in March when I declared. We walked over to the State Ethics Commission, and my wife and I signed the paperwork, paid the filing fees, and we offered ourselves in a press conference right on the doorsteps and explained to folks the first thing has to be financial and fiscal responsibility. Although it's a solicitor's office, which is the district attorney is what that is for Richland and Kershaw counties. When people lose trust in the ability of that office to manage things properly and to be transparent with its monies, and if people are saying, hey, money's being wasted, being stolen, spent, things of that nature, you lose confidence in the office. And you can never lose confidence in the district attorney's office or the solicitor's office, because that's the chief prosecutor. That's the highest ranking law enforcement official in 2 counties. And so the first thing has to be to hire accountants, CPAs to come in and give us a clean bill of health, so that from day one, after November 6th, we'll have a clean bill of health knowing this is where the monies are. And we will have strong procedures in place that will make sure that the checks and balances are in place so that everybody will always know where the money is. I want transparency. So if the legislator, which has been talking about passing a series of laws where they take over the books and they govern things, that's fine with me, because you should never be talking about money in a solicitor's office unless you're prosecuting somebody who stole it. And so we have to get to a point where folks know that, hey, this is where the money is, this is where this is how it's being spent, and here it is, open books, you see it. This is it. We put it to the side and we don't talk about that anymore. And now we can get to the job of doing justice by people. Because, contrary to popular belief, a lot of folks watch these shows, CSI and, CSI Miami, CSI Guam, whatever else they got out these days. And, I won't say all you see, but a lot of what you see is prosecutors saying, I've got a 99% conviction rate and I've done this. And it ain't about that. The job is to do justice. That's 3 words. And as a prosecutor, you take an oath to do justice. And that's what you're going to see out of my office. We are going to do justice. We're going to do the right thing. And we're going to do it in a manner that is efficient, that is, and that is going to garner the respect of all of our citizens in Richland and Kershaw County.
Okay. I've been to several political stops and heard you speak several times. And one of the things you often mention is about also showing compassion. You talk of justice and you talk of compassion. Tell me a little, or would you expound on what do you mean compassion, and how, if you are elected to be solicitor, how will you bring compassion to that office?
It starts again with the job again is to do justice. So what that means is there are really 4 ways you can dispose of cases. One is by trial, one is by plea, one is by a diversionary program, and the 4th is by dismissal. So it's one of those 4 ways. And so there are cases, the violent crime, when you're talking about, gun violence, hurting our women, our children, armed robberies, burglary first, where you're breaking in and injuring people, things of that nature, domestic violence. We got to be hard on those. We've got to prosecute and protect, because part of our job is to protect. But the flip side of this thing, and it's not even a flip side, you can step to the side, there's a compassionary component as well. And that means we have diversionary programs. Dan Johnson, the prior solicitor, put some very good programs into action. And so what we have to do is we have to make sure those programs are functioning properly. We got to fund them properly, and we got to make sure that the wraparound programs that should be there with them are funded properly and functioning properly. And we're going to do that. We're not going to come in taking away any programs. I mean, when I say programs, you've got pretrial intervention, you've got mental health court, you've got an alcohol diversionary program, you've got drug courts, and you got veterans courts. You got youth arbitration courts. And so we have to make sure that those are functioning properly, and that the people who are staffing it are trained the way they need to be trained, and that now after those programs are up and functioning properly, we have to make sure that they're going to be affordable, so that so that they're not cost prohibitive to a segment of our population. And so it's one thing to have the programs, but are the programs affordable is that next piece, and we need to make sure that happens. Because again, it's about justice to everybody in Richland and Kershaw County. And it means, it doesn't matter what your zip code is, what your last name is, what the hue of your skin is, what your political party is, if you vote for me or not. If there's an issue and you qualify for these programs, we want to make sure that it's accessible to you. And if you're willing to make the commitment to do what it takes to have the treatment and go through the programs that are set up, then you need to have that opportunity. And that's what we want to get. And that's why I say it's having compassion, because the ultimate goal is not to keep locking people up, because that doesn't work. We gotta treat people who have issues and who are ready to just be reassimilated into the population, and they're better people for it. We're all better for it when you've gone through and gotten the program, gotten the treatments that you need. So that's what I want. That's what I want to see. And we're going to partner. We're going to do all that we can to make sure that happens.
Okay. You speak of diversionary programs and making sure that they are affordable. There are some problems with backlog in terms of cases in Richland County. If elected solicitor, what are your top 3 issues that you're going to focus on day one?
All right, and it's going to be in segments, and so again, it starts with financial accountability, which we spoke about. That has to happen. People need to know from day one, this is the process going forward, and this is how your money is going to be managed, and you need to know that's going to be done properly. Bam, we'll set that to the side. 2, you talked about backlogs, which is crucial. We got to efficiently evaluate every case that we have, and in doing that, that means we're going to have to make some hard decisions. Again, I talked to you about those 4 ways that you can dispose of cases, so we'll look at those 4 ways and see which ones fit in which compartments. And as we do that, our partners will be our victims advocates, because you got to bring victims of crimes in and talk to them and inform them and let them know what's happening, how it's happening, and just let them know, hey, this is what we're doing, this is how we're doing it. And we have to make sure they're partners in what we're doing. We got to assess the cases, make sure that the charges are proper charges, make sure that we're out making fair offers. If there is a potential way to resolve the case by way of guilty plea, make sure it's a fair offer based on the facts of the case. If it's a case that was improvidently brought, then it may need to be dismissed. And also, again, if there's a diversionary program that's something that a particular charge qualifies for, we need to be aggressive about looking at those programs. And as we do those things, again, we're doing it efficiently, we're doing it effectively, then again, that's going to show you. It's one thing to talk about it, but I'm a believer in being about it. So we got to show you by doing those things that we're going to be a results-oriented business. But at the same time, it's not going to be about cranking out numbers. It's about being fair, and that's what I care about at the end of the day.
Okay. Once again, you won the primary decisively.
Yes, sir.
You have opposition, the write-in candidate, Meadows. Tell us a little bit of what do you say are your main differences between you and Meadows?
No, he's been a career prosecutor, and again, I've been a career criminal defense lawyer, and so the benefit I have is I've seen a lot. I've experienced a lot. I've been in the courtroom, since pretty much day 2 once I started practicing with Johnson, Toll, and Batiste. And what that means is I've sat in living rooms of people who've been charged with violent crimes, with all types of crimes, sometimes rightfully, sometimes wrongfully. So I know the effects that having a charge against you, I know those effects. Let's just be real in this day and time. If you're charged with a crime, what happens? Oftentimes you're either placed on leave or you lose the job that you have. If you don't have the money to make bond, which is another issue, then you may have to sit in Alvin S. Glenn over at the Kershaw County Detention Center for a period of time, which again means you've lost the job. Your family is now missing possibly a chief breadwinner or a loved one. Are falling behind. If you have child support or something like that, you're falling behind on that obligation. And so all of a sudden now you're taken away from your family for a period of time, sometimes up to 2 years, sometimes more, while you're waiting on court. And so, my belief is that, again, efficiently and effectively, we've got to be doing these things. And so understanding how those things affect you, we're going to be sensitive to all of those things. So if you tell me, you're not guilty of a crime, then we need to be moving as quickly and as efficiently as we can to get the discovery to you, meaning the evidence in the case, and so that a trial date can be set and we can go through with the trial. So up or down, a jury can make a decision about guilty or not guilty. If you say, hey, you know what, I did do something and I'm willing to look at ways that we can make this a better situation, maybe a plea is something that we need to be doing. So, again, I come from the mindset of trying to make sure that everybody is going to be treated fairly all of the time. Another piece, in terms of differences between us, you talked about a primary. I came through the primary. And so if you were to rewind this clock, back to March of this year, back to the spring, what was the tenor? What was the tone? There was a lot of question about where the spending was, what was going on, if anything wrong was going on, and nobody was willing to talk about these things. So when we entered this race, when I filed before the incumbent did. And if you think back, we had 7 or 8 debates. You were at some of them, right. And we sat there. We talked about the issues. We went like a heavyweight fight, respectfully. We went like a heavyweight fight, pound to pound, blow for blow. We went after it, and we talked about what was right, what was wrong, what needed to be changed, and the accountability issues. We talked about all of those things. And so, it was almost like a David and Goliath situation because nobody believed that the incumbent could be beaten. And so as we talked about these issues, as we went through them, and as we informed people, as we educated people, as we went out to communities, we worked to get to a point where everybody fully understood what was going on. And we framed all of the issues that, quite frankly, my opponent's not even talking about. we framed all of those issues and we talked about it and we brought it to light. We were the sunlight that put everything out there so that the public could understand what was going on. We had the courage to step forward and make that run. And we did it. And so, while I respect my opponent, I do, I didn't wait till the end and come in through the side, trying to get signatures. I stood up in front of all of the citizens of Richland and Kershaw County, in front of every camera, answered every question, and fought every battle that needed to be fought to get to this point. And so I say that because we had the courage to do it. And I'm going to have that courage as we go forward, because it takes that to run this office. It takes that to make tough decisions. And we're going to make those decisions. We're going to do it effectively and efficiently.
Well said. One of the things I definitely want to ask you, we hear a lot of our president in his party talk about law and order.
Right.
And you talk a lot about justice. And if you are selected solicitor, I'd like to know your thought. What is the difference between law and order and justice?
I mean, it's a good question. I mean, justice, I think there's a biblical explanation to this and a legal explanation, but I think it's just simple. It's just doing the right thing. It is doing the right thing at all times, even when it's not convenient to do the right thing. I mean, law and order can mean arrest, and I think that's more the what you're hearing coming from DC. Arrest, and numbers will tell you it doesn't work. You can't just keep arresting and building jails. It does not work. And so, you just continue to just build jails. I think it was Dr. King, or it may have been Gandhi, one of the two, that said, if it's always an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, everybody's going to end up blind and toothless. And so what are we doing now? I mean, I think we have the intelligence to, and you've seen some of these numbers, and many educators will tell you, jails are often built on the strength of the third grade testing scores, reading scores. And so my belief is if we can look at that data and extrapolate what the numbers of the prisons that we have to build are, then why can't we, look in here and say, all right, let's partner with different programs here? Because that's being done in other counties, in other cities, and partner with public defender's office, businesses, faith communities, community leaders, and start intervening in those third grade classrooms and doing something different. We're offering intervention, offering problem solving, offering, conflict resolution. And if you're doing those things, then you're giving children tools so that they don't necessarily, act out in ways that will land them at some point in time afoul of the law. So I'm a believer that we got to invest in some of those things. And it doesn't necessarily mean throwing money at it. It just means having the heart and the compassion and actually having the will or the want to just get out there and make yourself available and putting the time in. I promise you there are people in this community who want to do it, because as I've gone all around the communities, there are people that are already doing it. But if it comes from our office and we say, hey, we realize, just the power that this office can have, but we want to, stretch out an arm here and see how can we help you? How can we help teachers, maintain some of the decorum that needs to be maintained in the classroom? We can do those things, if we have the want to, and I've got that want to. I mean, my kids are in the Richland School District 1, and they're in middle school now. But I understand what they're seeing. I think I understand, But again, I'll listen to those issues that are coming, because I deal with teachers on a daily basis, administrators on a daily basis. There are lots of people who I'm talking to and listening to, and I see the frustration that they have, at the way the system has been working. The old adage, if you always do what you've always done, what's going to happen? You're always going to get what you've always gotten. And so we've got to just be more innovative and be a little bit more intelligent about how we handle this, and I'm willing to do that. Okay.
One of the questions I definitely want to get in, there are segments of the community that are fearful of law enforcement.
Right.
And with the mood in the country, there's been a rash of videos you've seen of law enforcement officers, questionable shootings, police brutality. If elected solicitor, would you treat those crimes, law enforcement is accused of overstepping or brutality, would you treat them the same as any other person who would engage in breaking the law?
If rules are broken, you've got to be held accountable. And I'm a believer we have to be held accountable if the rules are not followed. If you do something that out of bounds, if you do it improperly, whether or not you're law enforcement, whether or not you're a solicitor, whether or not you're a private citizen, a public citizen, we all have sets of rules we got to be governed by, and we will all follow our rules. And so if there's something where someone goes afoul of it, then we're going to investigate it. And if the law has been broken, we're going to do what the law requires us to do.
Okay.
All right. Now, if I can go a little further on that, one of the things you will see under my watch is you will see us again reaching out to communities and having these talks as well about how traffic stops work. What are your rights? What are you supposed to be doing in these situations? What is it how is law enforcement trained? And I want law enforcement as a part of this. This isn't just going to be coming from me or from the public defender's office. There'll be forum that we will be putting on throughout the city and throughout Kershaw County as well, just to say, hey, this is what happens. These are the things that officers are asking you for. And this is the best way to answer those questions and to deal with these things. Because, I've told my son, who's now 13, I was like, look, your job is to come home. If you believe that you've been stopped and you're not properly stopped, you're not going to win that argument on the side of the road. You provide the information that's asked, you take the ticket, you come home. And we'll fight that fight another day if there's a fight to be fought. And so that's just, I think, an educational process we all have to talk about. And some of it, it means law enforcement needs to be at the table too. And we can start hopefully kind of quelling some of the fears that we have. Unfortunately, some of the things that you see, some of the failure to stop for blue lights and some of these chases that escalate into really bad situations are sometimes the most minor situations, like, hey, I have a couple traffic tickets I didn't pay, so my license is under suspension. So sometimes people take off and not understanding and not realizing that instead of now just having a fine that you can pay and get your license reinstated and in short order have those things worked out, now by failure to stop, now you've now accumulated a possible felony, and if somebody else gets hurt or killed, then now you've just now gone into a whole different direction over a couple traffic tickets. So we just got to talk about that thing. Tell folks and explain to them this is how it works. If your license is not in order, this is how you can get it in order. If there's issues that you have where things need to be expunged, we just a whole set of educational things that we need to take to communities that you're going to see under my watch that we're going to be doing, because we're partners. We all have skin in this game. We all have some stake here. We all have something at stake. And if we roll our sleeves up and understand that we're going to have to work and we're going to have to educate, we do those things, I feel like in 4 years we're going to be in a better place than we are today.
Okay. Richland County voters, likewise voters across the nation, go to the polls on Tuesday.
Yes, sir.
Talk to the voters for a minute that may be on the fence. Why should they vote for Byron Gipson?
First of all, you need to vote, period. I want to earn your vote. And in wanting to earn your vote, I feel like a vote is a contract. And that means you've signed a contract with me for 4 years that says that, hey, I'm going to be accountable to you. I'm going to work hard. You're going to see results in what I'm doing. And you will see accountability from everything that I've talked about. And so that vote is a contract. But I'll tell you first, you just need to vote first and foremost. We've got, forefathers, our ancestors, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, grandparents who didn't have that right to vote years ago. And so when you don't vote, you're disrespecting that legacy. Those people who died and were put in jail or sat in jail for periods of time, so you'd have an opportunity to shape your community. And then when you don't vote, what you're doing is essentially you're giving 2 votes to the opponent. Because, at least if you vote and another person votes, then you may cancel one another out. But if you don't vote, you've now lost the ability to have any say-so in how things are done. And the local elections, quite frankly, are where you can have the most say-so. I can point to spaces right here in town where elections were lost by 60 votes. And fewer if you're talking about some of the smaller municipalities. And so your vote is your voice, and if you don't vote, you have no voice. And to some people it may sound corny, but it's the truth. If you don't vote, then somebody who doesn't think like you, doesn't have some of the same concerns that you have, is going to get their point across, and now you're left silent, and now you're a little bit farther behind the 8 ball than you were beforehand. So I'll ask you for your vote because I'm the best candidate for this job. I'm the person who cares about all of our community and not just locking people up. I care about what happens with our community. I want to make this place better for my children and for their children than it was when I inherited it. And we can do that if we are effective, if we are fair, and if we do justice by all of our citizens. And that's the pledge that I give you right now. I'll give you that pledge today. I'll give it to you in 8 months. I'll give it to you in 5 years. We are going to do justice by all of our citizens all of the time. So I do need your vote on November 6th.
Mr. Gipson, best of luck to you on Tuesday, and thank you for taking time to sit down with us.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.